The grocery store doors slid open with a soft hiss, and for reasons I couldn't explain, my stomach tightened like it was warning me to turn around. I was 64 years old, standing in a busy Montreal supermarket, tugging my sweater closer as cold air crept inside my bones. My son Derek walked ahead of me, already halfway to the dairy aisle, moving with the confidence of someone who belonged here. I didn't. "Just grab a cart, Mom," he said without looking back. "I'll get the milk." I nodded and pushed the cart toward the produce section, pretending everything felt normal. The store buzzed with overlapping French and English conversations. Apples stacked like sculptures, kale misted with water. Ordinary, comforting, until it wasn't. I was reaching for tomatoes when I heard hurried footsteps behind me. "Mrs. Collins?" I turned. A young cashier stood there, her name tag reading Sophie. She looked relieved, almost amused, like she'd finally found someone she'd been searching for. "Yes," I answered politely. She laughed. "Back again? I'm sorry?" "This is your third visit today," she said casually. "You really love our cheese selection." The tomato slipped from my fingers and thudded softly into the display. "I think you've mistaken me for someone else," I said carefully. "This is my first time here." Her smile faltered. She leaned closer, steadying my face with unsettling focus. "No, you were here this morning, and again 2 hours ago. You bought oranges and that French cheese you always buy." My pulse began to race. Before I could speak, a voice cut in sharp and panicked. "Mom!" Derek appeared beside me far too fast. His face was pale, jaw clenched tight. "We need to go. Now." He grabbed my arm with unexpected force, steering me away from the aisle. The milk carton in his hand slammed into the cart as he pushed it aside. "Derek, what are you doing?" I protested. "Forget it. We're leaving." "But we haven't—" "Now." The urgency in his voice silenced me. He practically dragged me through the store, abandoning the cart, ignoring the stairs. I glanced back once. Sophie stood frozen, confusion written all over her face. The doors opened. Cold air slapped my cheeks. Out in the parking lot, I yanked my arm free. "Derek Michael Collins," I said, planting my feet. "You will explain this right now." He ran a hand through his hair, the same nervous gesture he'd had as a boy when he lied. "It was nothing." She was confused. "She knew my name. She said I'd been there 3 times today." His face drained of color. "Get in the car," he said quietly. "Please." We drove in silence, the city passing by like nothing had changed. But everything had. Finally, he spoke. "There's a woman," he said. "She shops there. She looks like you." I stared straight ahead. "How much like me?" He swallowed. "Almost exactly." A chill crawled up my spine, because suddenly the cashier's certainty made terrifying sense, and I realized something far worse than being mistaken for a stranger. What if someone out there wasn't mistaking me, but actually knew me? In part 2, I discover why my son never wanted me to meet the woman who shares my face and why he hid her from me for 6 months. Before we continue, if stories that unravel hidden family secrets grip you, make sure you subscribe now. You won't want to miss what's coming next. The car ride felt longer than it was. Montreal's streets slid past the windows. Cafes, stone buildings, people laughing, while something heavy pressed against my chest. Derek's hands clenched the steering wheel so tightly, his knuckles turned white. "You said she looks like me," I broke the silence. "That's not an explanation." He exhaled slowly. Natalie and I saw her months ago at a fundraiser. And? And we thought it was coincidence at first, a resemblance. That happens. I turned toward him. No one panics in a grocery store over a coincidence. His jaw tightened. She lives here, he finally said, in Montreal. She shops at that store all the time. So the cashier wasn't wrong, I whispered. She really thought I was someone else. Yes. The word landed like a stone. And you didn't think to tell me? My voice shook. You let me walk into that store knowing this could happen? He hesitated too long. I didn't want to scare you. I laughed bitterly. You dragged me out like I was in danger. What aren't you telling me? We pulled into the underground parking garage of his upscale apartment building. The doors closed behind us with a hollow echo. Inside the elevator, the silence screamed. Once inside the apartment, I sat down hard on the couch. My legs felt weak. Talk, I said. Now. Derek paced the room. Her name is Marie. The name echoed in my head. She's well off, he continued carefully. Very well off. She was adopted. No siblings, no children. My stomach twisted. And, I pressed, and she's sick. I froze. Sick how? Early Alzheimer's. The room seemed to tilt. So there's a woman who looks exactly like me, who lives in this city, forgets where she's been, and you decided the best plan was to keep her existence a secret. We were protecting her and you. From what? He stopped pacing, wouldn't meet my eyes. From people who might think you had motives. That word burned. You think I'd show up and demand her money? No, he said quickly, but others might. Her lawyers, her advisors, they're very protective. A cold understanding settled over me. And you? He swallowed. We visit her. We help her, make sure she eats, takes her meds. How long? I asked. Another pause. 6 months. 6 months. You let me talk to you every week. You listen to me talk about my life, my past, my loneliness, and never once told me I had a twin sister? He looked at me then, eyes full of something like guilt or fear. We were going to tell you soon. I stood up. No, you were going to tell me when it was convenient. My hands trembled as a truth crystallized in my mind. Marie wasn't just a secret. She was a liability, and I was something Derek never planned to factor in. In part 3, I start asking the questions my son hoped I never would and uncover why Marie's life, her money, and my identity are all tangled together. That night, sleep refused to come. I lay awake in the guest room, staring at the ceiling, replaying every word Derek had said. A woman who looked like me, lived like me, walked into the same grocery store 3 times a day because she forgot she'd already been there. And somehow my son knew all of this and chose silence. By morning, I knew one thing with absolute clarity. I wasn't leaving Montreal without answers. I waited until Derek left for work. The apartment fell quiet, the kind of quiet that presses on your ears. I pulled my phone from my purse and typed words I'd never thought I'd search. Identical twin separated at birth. The results were endless and terrifying. Adoption records, missing siblings, hospitals with sealed files, court-ordered separations. My chest tightened. I refined the search. Vermont, 1961, home birth. That's when my fingers froze above the screen, because my birth story had always been vague. My mother used to say I was born at home. No hospital, no records, just a midwife whose name she could never remember. I'd never questioned it. Why would I? Until now. I dug deeper, searching adoption agencies from the 1960s, cases involving twins, lawsuits that mentioned falsified records. The more I read, the more a quiet dread took hold. Then I pulled up my own birth certificate. I'd scanned it years ago for a passport application. I zoomed in. The paper looked wrong. Too clean. The seal faint, almost printed on, not embossed. My stomach dropped. A knock on the door made me jump. "Mom?" Derek's voice. "Can we talk?" I closed my laptop but didn't hide it fast enough. He sat on the edge of the bed, rubbing his hands together like he was bracing himself. "There's more," he said. I met his eyes. "I know." His face tightened. "You don't know everything." "Then start talking." He hesitated, then finally said it. "We're almost certain Marie is your identical twin." The words sucked the air from the room. "My mother would have told me," I whispered. He shook his head slowly. "She didn't." Something shattered inside me then, not loudly, but completely. "How long have you known?" I asked. 6 months. 6 months of phone calls, of smiles, of pretending. "Does she know about me?" I asked. "No." That hurt more than I expected. "Why not?" His answer came too quickly. "Because it complicates things." That was the moment I realized something else. This wasn't just about protecting Marie. It was about controlling information, about timing, about who knew what and when. And suddenly, one terrifying question rose above all the others. If Derek had hidden my sister from me, what else had he decided I wasn't allowed to know? Question for you. If you discovered your child had hidden a twin sibling from you for your own good, would you forgive them or confront them immediately? Tell me in the comments. I'm reading every single one. In part 4, I confront Derek again, only this time I ask the one question that makes him completely lose control. I didn't raise my voice. That's what frightened him. We stood in the kitchen, the morning light pouring through the windows, reflecting off stainless steel and white marble. Everything about the apartment looked controlled, polished, perfect, just like the lies. "Derek," I said calmly, "who else knows about Marie?" He stiffened. "Natalie, obviously." "Anyone else?" He turned away, opening the fridge, though he clearly wasn't hungry. "Her lawyer, her financial advisor." I watched his hand shake as he poured coffee. "That's not what I asked," I said. "I asked, who else knows about me?" Silence, the kind that answers everything. "Derek," I said again, slower this time, "who else knows I exist?" He set the mug down too hard. "People who need to," he snapped. There it was. Not denial, not confusion. Control. "Why?" I asked. "Why does my existence need to be managed?" He rubbed his face, pacing now. "Because Marie is vulnerable, because people take advantage of her." "And you?" I asked quietly. "Are you people?" His head snapped up. "That's not fair." "Then be fair," I said. "Tell me the truth." He stopped pacing. "Marie changed her will," he said. The room went very still. "When?" I asked. 3 months ago. "And?" "And she left half of her estate to me." The words landed like a punch. "How much?" I asked, though I already felt sick. He didn't answer. "How much, Derek?" "Tens of millions." I had to sit down. "So let me understand this," I said slowly. "You've been visiting my twin sister for months, a sister I didn't know existed. You helped manage her life, her medications, her trust, and somewhere in the middle of all that, she rewrote her will and left you an enormous inheritance?" He rushed toward me. "Mom, I didn't ask for it." "But you accepted it." He hesitated. "Yes, and you didn't tell me," I said, "because if I showed up, if Marie met me, if anyone found out she had a living twin sister—" It would raise questions, he admitted. Questions, like whether a sick woman had been influenced, like whether money had shaped loyalty, like whether the truth had been delayed on purpose. I don't care about her money, I said, standing up. I care that I lost a sister for 64 years, and you decided that was an acceptable price for stability. That's not what this is, he said desperately. Then what is it? He opened his mouth, closed it, and in that moment, I saw it. Fear, not of losing Marie, not of losing me, but of losing control of a story he'd carefully constructed. I want to meet her, I said. His face went white. That's not a good idea. That wasn't a request. He took a step back. Mom, please, you don't understand what could happen. No, I said softly. I finally do. Because the truth was no longer about inheritance or illness. It was about whether I was going to remain a secret or reclaim the life that had been stolen from me. If you were in my place, would you meet Marie immediately or wait until the legal risks were resolved? Tell me what you would do in the comments. I decide to do the one thing Derek begged me not to, and it sets off a chain of events no one could control. Quick reminder, if you're hooked into this story and don't want to miss what happens next, make sure you subscribe now. What's coming after this changes everything. I didn't tell Derek when I made the decision. That was intentional. For 6 months, he'd been deciding things for me. What I could know, who I could meet, when the truth was convenient. I wasn't going to ask permission anymore. I'm going for a walk, I said, grabbing my coat. He looked up from his phone, distracted. Be careful, it's cold. I almost laughed at the irony. Outside, old Montreal was alive with tourists and street musicians, the cobblestones slick from the morning frost. Everything looked normal, beautiful, and that somehow made it worse, because my life had just cracked open. I walked for nearly 2 hours, replaying every memory of my mother, every unanswered question, every time she'd brushed off details about my birth. By the time I returned to Derek's apartment building, my resolve was solid. I was going to meet Marie, whether Derek approved or not. I reached the door and stopped. Voices, sharp, urgent. Natalie's voice, tight, angry. You should never have taken her to that store. I didn't know Marie would be there, Derek shot back. You knew it was a risk. 6 months of planning, Derek. 6 months, and you let this happen. My hand froze on the door handle. Planning? What planning? Natalie hissed. If Loretta meets Marie before everything is finalized. Lower your voice, Derek snapped. She could hear you. I pushed the door open. They both jumped. Everything finalized? I asked calmly. After what? Natalie recovered first, pasting on a polite smile that didn't reach her eyes. Loretta, you must be freezing. Let me make you some tea. No, I said. Sit down, both of you. Something in my tone made them obey. I stayed standing. Tell me, I said, what have you been planning for 6 months? Derek rubbed his face. Mom, this sounds worse than it is. Then you should have told me sooner. Silence stretched. Finally, Natalie spoke. Marie has no immediate family, no children, no siblings. Her estate is enormous, I finished. And it was going to charity, Derek added quietly, until she changed her will and made you her heir, I said. Yes. The room felt airless. So let me be clear, I said slowly. You befriended my twin sister while she was sick. You allowed her to believe she was alone in the world. You accepted her money, and you kept me hidden because my existence complicated your story. That's not fair, Derek whispered. No, I said. What's not fair is stealing 64 years from 2 sisters and calling it protection. Natalie stood up. We were going to introduce you properly on her birthday, with lawyers present, witnesses, everything documented." "How thoughtful," I said coldly, after she'd already rewritten her will. Derek looked like he might cry. "We were trying to do this safely. You don't get to decide what's safe for me or for her." I picked up my purse. "Where are you going?" Derek asked, panic creeping into his voice. "To meet my sister." His face went pale. "Mom, please, there are people involved, powerful people." I paused at the door and turned back. Then they should have told the truth before I learned it on my own. And I walked out, knowing that whatever happened next would change all of our lives. I've finally come face to face with the woman who shares my faith, and she says something that proves she's known about me far longer than anyone admitted. Derek barely spoke as we cut through Montreal traffic, his grip tight on the wheel, his eyes constantly checking mirrors, like someone following us wasn't out of the question. I sat in the back seat, my reflection staring back at me in the glass, older, tired, but suddenly unfamiliar. "Where does she live?" I asked. "Westmount," he replied. "Secure building." Secure. From me, apparently. We pulled into a quiet, upscale neighborhood lined with trees and stone buildings that looked like they belonged on postcards. Derek parked and turned to face me. "Mom," he said quietly, "if this goes badly—" "It already has," I replied. The lobby smelled faintly of lemon polish and money. Everything gleamed. We rode the elevator in silence. When the doors opened, I felt it. That strange electric awareness, like stepping into a room where something important had already happened. Derek knocked. Nothing. He knocked again. Then the door opened, and my breath left my body. She stood there, wrapped in a camel-colored cardigan, silver hair styled almost exactly like mine, same posture, same hazel eyes, same faint crease between the brows. For a heartbeat, neither of us spoke. "Oh," she said softly, "there you are." My knees nearly buckled. You were expecting me?" I whispered. She tilted her head, steadying my face with gentle curiosity. "Not today," she said, "but I knew you'd come eventually." Derek inhaled sharply behind me. I stepped forward. "My name is Loretta." She smiled, confused, delighted, sad all at once. "Marie." We stared at each other like children meeting a long-lost reflection. "I see you sometimes," she continued casually, "in mirrors, in dreams. Mother said I imagined it." Mother. The word hit like a hammer. "I thought I was broken," she said, her smile fading, like half of me was missing. I reached for her hands. They were cold, familiar. "You're not broken," I said. "You were separated." Tears welled in her eyes. "So I'm not crazy?" "No," I said firmly. "You were lied to." Behind us, Derek cleared his throat. "Aunt Marie." Her face lit up when she saw him. "Oh, good, you came. I was worried I'd forgotten something important today." She glanced between us. "Did you bring my sister?" I swallowed hard. "I'm right here." We sat together in her living room, expensive art on the walls, sticky notes everywhere, reminders taped to lamps, calendars overlapping with conflicting dates. She studied me endlessly. "You have my hands," she said suddenly, "and my laugh. I always wondered where it went." I laughed through tears. For a moment, just one, we weren't inheritance problems or legal risks or secrets. We were sisters. Then she leaned closer and whispered something that made my blood run cold. "Be careful," she said. "They all want something from us." I looked at Derek, and suddenly I wasn't sure anymore who she meant. Marie reveals what she remembers about her past, and the truth behind our separation is darker than I ever imagined. Marie was having a good day. I could tell by the way her eyes stayed focused, by how her sentences didn't drift halfway through. Derek noticed it too. He hovered nearby, tense, like he was afraid this clarity might vanish if anyone breathed too loudly. I sat beside her on the couch, our shoulders almost touching. "Do you remember anything from when you were little?" I asked gently. She frowned, thinking. "Bits. Feelings more than pictures." "Like what?" She stared at the window, sunlight catching in her hair. "I remember crying. A lot. And a woman's voice. Not Mother Catherine, another one, younger, softer." My heart stuttered. "Our birth mother," I whispered. Marie nodded slowly. She smelled like soap and something sweet. She kept saying the same word over and over. "What word?" I asked. "Please." The room went quiet. "I remember hands pulling me away," Marie continued. "I remember thinking I was dying or that something inside me was." My throat tightened. "Did anyone ever tell you why you were adopted?" She shook her head. "They said it was better this way, that twins were inconvenient." Inconvenient? Like luggage, like paperwork, like lives that didn't fit neatly into someone else's plan. Derek shifted uncomfortably. "Marie, maybe we shouldn't—" She waved him off. "I'm fine. I want to remember." She turned back to me. "Mother Catherine used to cry on my birthday, November 7th. Every year, she'd say she was sorry." I felt dizzy. "My mother did the same thing," I said. "She'd bake a cake, but she never looked happy." Marie's eyes widened. She knew. "Yes," I said. "I think she did." Marie went quiet for a long moment, then reached for my hand. "They stole something from us," she said. "Didn't they?" "Yes," I answered. "Time." She nodded as if that confirmed something she'd always suspected. "And Derek," she said suddenly, turning toward him, "you know more than you've told us." Derek stiffened. "Marie." "She get nervous when the past comes up," she said calmly. "People who are innocent don't get nervous." Silence. Then she said something that changed the air in the room completely. "My lawyer warned me," she said, "before you ever brought Loretta here." I froze. "Warned you about what?" I asked. "About a hospital," she replied slowly, "one in Vermont. He said some adoptions there weren't legal." My pulse thundered. "He told me not to ask questions, said powerful people didn't like their names being connected to it." Derek's face drained of color. "That's impossible," he muttered. Marie looked at him with sudden clarity. "Is it?" Because in that moment, I knew. Our separation wasn't just a sad story. It was a crime, and someone was still trying to keep it buried. A stranger contacts us with information that confirms our adoption was illegal and puts all of us in serious danger. The phone rang just after sunset. Marie was in the kitchen, carefully lining up her pills the way Derek had taught her, one slow, deliberate movement at a time. I was watching her hands when my phone buzzed with an unfamiliar number. I hesitated, then answered. "Loretta Collins?" a man asked quietly. "Yes." "My name is Joseph Roth. I'm an attorney. I believe you and your sister were separated at birth." My heart slammed against my ribs. "How did you get this number?" I demanded. "I represented your adoptive mother years ago," he said. "She contacted me before she passed. She asked me to find you if certain questions ever came up." My knees weakened. Marie looked over. "Who is it?" I put the call on speaker. Joseph continued. "Your adoption wasn't legal, neither was Marie's." The words landed heavy and final. Derek shot to his feet. "That's not possible. We've seen the paperwork." "That paperwork was altered," Joseph replied calmly. "St. Catherine's Hospital in Burlington was involved in multiple illegal adoptions in the early 1960s. Twins were routinely separated and sold to different families." Sold. Marie let out a soft, broken sound. "Our birth mother?" I asked. Mary Sullivan? She never signed relinquishment forms, Joseph said. She was told her babies died. Silence swallowed the room. I have documents, affidavits, internal hospital memos, names. Names? Richard repeated. Yes, doctors, administrators, benefactors. My blood ran cold. Why are you telling us now? Because someone accessed sealed records last week, he said. Someone powerful enough to trigger alerts. Marie's hands began to tremble. They know you're asking questions, which means you need to be careful. Derek stepped forward. Who accessed the records? Joseph paused. A law firm connected to Marie's financial advisor. Every head turned. Richard, Marie whispered. Yes, Joseph confirmed. He's been monitoring any legal movement tied to Marie's estate and background. When your name appeared, he moved fast. My stomach twisted. He's not just worried about money, I said slowly. He's afraid of what we might uncover. That's my assessment, Joseph replied. If this adoption ring becomes public, it won't just affect one family. It could trigger lawsuits, criminal investigations, careers ending. Marie straightened, something fierce flickering behind her tired eyes. They stole our lives, she said. They don't get to steal our truth, too. Joseph exhaled. Then you need to decide quickly. Either you walk away or you prepare for a fight. The call ended. No one spoke for a long time. Outside, Montreal glowed peacefully. Cars passing, people laughing, a city unaware that decades-old crimes were starting to surface. Finally, Derek broke the silence. If this goes public, someone's going to try to stop you. I looked at my sister, my mirror, who nodded slowly. Then they'd better hurry, she said, because I've already lost 64 years. Richard makes his move and forces me to choose between protecting my son or exposing the truth about our stolen past. Richard didn't call. He showed up. It was mid-morning when the concierge rang Marie's apartment. His voice was clipped, uneasy. There's a Mr. Richard Hale here to see you. He says it's urgent. Marie looked at me, then at Derek. Let him up, she said calmly. Derek's face tightened. Marie, you don't have to do this. Yes, I do, she replied. I'm tired of people deciding for me. Minutes later, the elevator chimed. Richard stepped out wearing a tailored gray suit, confidence stitched into every movement. He smiled like someone used to getting his way. Marie, he said warmly. Then his eyes shifted to me. You must be Loretta. I didn't return the smile. We should talk privately, he said. No, Marie replied. You'll talk here. Richard adjusted his cufflinks. Very well. He wasted no time. I'm aware you've been speaking with an attorney and digging into records that were sealed for good reason. For your convenience, I said. For stability, he corrected. Marie's condition makes her vulnerable to manipulation. Marie's jaw tightened. Careful. Richard turned to Derek. You understand the stakes. If this story gets out, your inheritance evaporates. So does your reputation. I felt Derek flinch. You've benefited from the current arrangement, Richard continued smoothly. Why destroy it? Because it's built on a lie, I said. Richard sighed. Truth is expensive, Loretta, and you're not the one who'll pay the highest price. He slid a folder onto the table. A settlement, he said. Sign it and all investigations stop. Generous compensation, non-disclosure, everyone walks away comfortable. Marie didn't even open it. And if we don't? She asked. Richard's smile faded. Then Derek becomes part of the problem. The room went cold. What does that mean? Marie demanded. Richard's gaze locked onto Derek. The will, the timing, the access. It won't look good under scrutiny. My heart pounded. You'd ruin my son to protect yourself? I said. I'd protect my clients, Richard replied evenly. Collateral damage happens. Derek finally spoke, voice strained. You told me everything was legal. Richard didn't answer. Marie stood up. I trusted you, she said quietly. You monitored my past without telling me. You tracked my sister like she was a threat. Richard straightened. I protected your legacy. No, Marie said. You protected your silence. She pushed the folder back toward him. We're not signing anything. Richard's eyes hardened. Then you leave me no choice. He turned to go, pausing at the door. This won't end the way you think. People with power don't lose quietly. When he was gone, the apartment felt smaller. Derek collapsed into a chair, hands shaking. I didn't know it went this far. I knelt in front of him. Then help us end it. Marie placed a hand on both our shoulders. We do this together, she said, or we don't do it at all. I nodded, because at that moment, the choice was clear. We weren't just fighting for the past anymore. We were fighting for who we'd be remembered as. Derek makes a confession that could save us or destroy everything we've built. Derek didn't sleep that night. Neither did I. The apartment stayed dim, lights low, as if brightness itself felt dangerous. Marie sat at the dining table, methodically sorting old photographs into neat stacks. People, places, years she half remembered. Watching her, I realized how much strength it took just for her to stay present. Near dawn, Derek finally spoke. There's something I never told either of you, he said quietly. I looked up. Marie paused, photo in hand. I helped Richard access the records. The words settled slowly, like dust after a collapse. You what? I asked. Derek's voice cracked. At first, I thought I was protecting Marie, making sure no one else could exploit her. Richard said if we stayed ahead of any surprises, we could control the fallout. And the will? I asked. He nodded. He said it would secure Marie's future, that it was temporary. Marie's hands trembled. So you knew? I didn't know about the illegal adoptions, Derek said quickly. Not then, but once I did, he swallowed. I was already involved. Silence stretched. Why didn't you stop? I asked. Because I was scared, he admitted, of losing everything, of being exposed, of disappointing both of you. Marie stood slowly. You disappointed us by lying, she said, not by being afraid. Tears slid down Derek's face. I'll testify. I'll give Joseph everything. Emails, calls, documents. My chest tightened. That could ruin you. I know, he said, but it might save you. Marie walked to him and took his hands. Truth doesn't destroy families, she said softly. Secrets do. For the first time since this began, I felt something shift, like the weight was no longer just on our shoulders. Joseph called later that morning. With Derek's cooperation, he said, we have enough to open a federal investigation. Then do it, Marie said firmly. There was a pause. Once this starts, there's no turning back. I looked at my sister, then at my son. Good, I said. We're done running. Outside, the city woke up, unaware that beneath its calm surface, a reckoning was beginning. The headline appeared at 6:14 a.m. I know the time because Marie read it out loud, her finger tracing each word as if reading made it more real. Federal probe opens into historic illegal adoptions at Vermont Hospital. Below it, a photograph. Not of me, not of Marie, but of St. Catherine's Hospital. Brick walls, dark windows, a place that had stolen lives and slept peacefully for decades. My phone began buzzing immediately. Journalists, unknown numbers, emails piling up faster than I could read them. They know, Marie whispered. Everyone knows. By noon, it was everywhere. News stations replayed archival footage, former nurses interviewed, experts talking about systemic abuse and sealed record exploitation, and then our names surfaced. Not full details, but enough. 2 elderly sisters reunited after 6 decades. A son caught between inheritance and truth. Derek didn't leave the apartment. "They're calling me a villain," he said hollowly, scrolling through articles, "and a victim, sometimes both in the same paragraph." Marie reached over and took his phone away. "Labels don't matter," she said. "Only what we do next." Richard resigned that afternoon. His firm issued a statement denying wrongdoing while cutting ties effective immediately. It was the kind of move that looked decisive, but smelled like panic. Joseph called again. "We've received dozens of tips," he said. "Other twins, other families. You opened something much bigger than yourselves." That night, we watched the news in silence. A woman in her 70s spoke through tears about a sister she never knew existed. A man held up 2 photographs, same face, different lives. Marie squeezed my hand. We weren't the only ones. No, we were just the first to stop being quiet. Then came the backlash. Anonymous letters, online comments questioning motives, accusations of greed, manipulation, even cruelty. Marie read every one. "Do they think we did this for money?" she asked softly. I shook my head. "They think what makes them comfortable." Derek finally spoke. "If I could undo this—" "You wouldn't," Marie said gently, "because then we'd still be ghosts." That night, as the city lights flickered outside, I realized something. The truth doesn't just expose villains, it exposes fear. And fear makes people loud, but it also makes others brave. I face a choice I never expected, one that will determine whether justice heals us or tears us apart for good. The letter arrived in a plain white envelope. No return address, just my name typed neatly like someone didn't want their handwriting recognized. I knew before I opened it that nothing good lived inside. Marie watched me from across the table, her eyes sharper than usual. "What is it?" I unfolded the paper slowly. It was an offer. Not money, at least not directly. Immunity. Not for Richard, not for the hospital administrator still hiding behind lawyers. For Derek. The Department of Justice wanted his full cooperation on record, sworn testimony, and access to everything he'd ever shared with Richard. In exchange, they'd recommend leniency, no prison, reduced charges, a future that wasn't permanently destroyed. But there was a condition. Derek's testimony would implicate people who hadn't yet been named publicly, including our birth mother's attending physician, a man now in his 90s, frail, revered in his community. Marie read the letter twice. "If we agree," she said slowly, "we help convict him." "Yes." "And if we don't?" "The case weakens," I replied, "possibly collapses." Derek stared at the floor. "I'll testify," he said immediately, "no matter what." Marie shook her head. "It's not that simple." She was right, because this wasn't just about law, it was about consequence. Dragging the past into daylight meant ripping open wounds for families who'd built entire lives around a lie, for children who'd never wanted to know, for people who would be shattered by the truth. I thought about my mother, her sadness, her silence, her birthday tears. She'd lived her whole life believing she lost 2 babies. Would justice have comforted her or broken her all over again? Joseph called that evening. "This is the moment that defines the case," he said. "And you." I sat beside Marie, our shoulders touching. "What do you want?" I asked her quietly. She took a long time to answer. "I want the truth, but I don't want it to become another weapon." We sat there, two women stitched together by loss, staring at a future neither of us had imagined, and I understood then justice wasn't a single path. It was a choice, one that would decide whether our story ended in healing or left a trail of new scars behind it. We make our decision, and the courtroom reveals a truth no one was prepared to hear. The courtroom was colder than I expected. Not physically, emotionally. Wooden benches, pale walls, a room designed to absorb stories without reacting to them. Marie sat beside me, smaller than she used to be, but steady. Derek sat behind us, flanked by his attorney. He looked older somehow, like the weight of the last year had finally settled into his face. When the judge entered, the room rose, and just like that, decades of silence were called to order. Joseph spoke first, clear, methodical. Names, dates, documents projected onto screens, hospital memos stamped confidential, adoption records with altered signatures. Then Derek stood. His hands shook as he took the oath. He told the truth about Richard, about the monitoring, about accessing sealed files, about how fear turned into silence and silence into harm. He didn't excuse himself. That mattered. Then came the testimony no one expected. The attending physician was wheeled in, 93 years old, oxygen tank humming softly, his voice thin but steady. He admitted it, not eagerly, not proudly, but without denial. There was pressure, he said, from donors, from the hospital board. Twins were profitable. A murmur rippled through the room. Our mother begged, he continued. She begged to see her babies. We told her they were gone. Marie squeezed my hand so tightly it hurt. I signed the papers, he said, because everyone else was. Silence followed. Not the awkward kind, the heavy kind. When it was over, no one cheered, no one cried. The judge recessed quietly, as if even the law needed a moment to breathe. Outside, reporters waited. Marie spoke first. "We're not here for revenge," she said. "We're here so this never happens again." I added only one sentence. Truth doesn't erase the past, but it gives the future a chance. Derek said nothing. He didn't need to, because for the first time since this began, the story wasn't being controlled. It was being told. And that changed everything. The verdict arrives, and with it, the final reckoning that defines what family truly means. The verdict didn't come with drama. No gasps, no shouting, no sudden justice served in a single cinematic moment. It arrived quietly, like truth often does once it's finally allowed to exist. The hospital was found liable, the adoption network exposed, criminal charges were filed where possible, civil settlements followed where time had stolen the chance for prison. Some people walked free because they were old, some because they were already dead, but none of them walked unseen anymore. That mattered. Marie and I sat together on a park bench a week later, wrapped in scarves, watching winter creep back into Montreal. She leaned her head against my shoulder. "I wish we'd had more time," she said softly. "So do I." Her condition progressed faster after the trial. Stress does that. Truth, too. But she was peaceful. No more wondering, no more half-memories scratching at the edges of her mind. She knew who she was, and who she wasn't alone with. Derek lost the inheritance. He didn't fight it. "I never earned it," he said. "I'd rather keep my mother." That was the first time I forgave him completely. We set up a foundation together, Marie insisted, one that helps reunite families separated by sealed or illegal adoptions. She attended the first meeting, sitting quietly, smiling as others told stories that sounded too much like ours. She passed away the following spring, in her sleep, holding my hand. I still see her sometimes, in mirrors and photos, in the way my laugh surprises me. People ask if I regret uncovering everything, if the pain was worth it. I tell them this: we lost 64 years, but we gained the truth. And in the end, that truth gave us something no one could ever take again: each other. For more stories, subscribe the channel.